So the question is, when GTM teams each spin up agents, how do you avoid chaos and overlap?
Yeah, I mean it's the strategy, I just saw yesterday's MarTech stack up to 15,367 ISVs. The sales tech stack, over 5,000. I run my own channel tech stack above here, but add the CX tech stack and the product stack on top of that. There are 250,000 ISVs on the way to a million, this decade. Now that AI is building software, we don't even have to go and hire developers as part of building our SaaS company. The fact of the matter is, the 7-layer stack of how we solve our own jobs and how we've kind of set up the processes of, moving data change pretty considerably when there's no logging. When each of these CRUD databases actually become headless, and we're starting to introduce them to agents and then create these paths that aren't linear, but agents that can bounce across data sets when they need them. So I'll use an example. Salesforce does a really big sales study every year, and they talk to 5,500 CROs. In the most recent study, 89% of salespeople in the world use partners every day. So for the 11% that aren't, like 58% plan to within a year. It kind of gets to the 96% of the entire $5.4 trillion tech industry that has partners surrounding the customer. In a sales process that kind of avoided that for a long time, now there's a need, agentic, and in Salesforce's world, it'll be Agentforce. In Microsoft's world, it'll be a Copilot, but there's a need before you think about your account-based marketing plan, before you think about the 28 moments the customer's going to go through before making a decision, you have to go tap into 100 more databases to understand the moments that are actually partner-led moments, not product-led, not sales-led or marketing-led moments. So to be successful in the future, you have to do that better than your competitor, better than the salesperson working for your competitor is doing. And then in the end, we know that it can't be a person doing it. The systems have to be built to be automated to handle that next best action with the customer without humans. So it's not only headless, it's humanless. And so you ask about chaos. What data do I introduce? What outcomes do I allow? And how do I constantly measure and readjust, how that's working at the end customer? Because there's really only one thing that takes away chaos is customer obsession. The only moments that matter are your customers' moments. And for all the movement around agentic AI, it's going to come down to how those moments move from one to the next. And whether it's adding friction to your processes, marketing, sales, CX processes, or helping.
So this is actually where maybe we have a slightly different point of view, which is probably why everybody wants to hear this. It's I think it's going to be the buyer's use of agents that are going to be far more life altering, right? Than anything that marketers or salespeople on the vendor side ever choose to do. There's a huge shift in the balance of power that goes beyond kind of like the final decision that it's always been the buyers, right? Into how they want to be dealt with. And I'm already seeing a lot of buyer bots that are doing phenomenal things, right? They're going out with only a problem statement and they're sweeping through the marketplace. They're collecting all kinds of information. They're stratifying the options. They are personalizing all of the vendor content internally from the buyer perspective, right? Basically, it's almost like they're doing what Forrester has been talking about as a quasi reality for the last 20 years, that's actually happening today, right? I think it's one of the reasons why we're probably looking at 80 to 90% attrition on sales roles over the next 3 or 4 years. I think it's why the state of marketing in B2B is going to be significantly different, because there's going to be whole parts of what have been kind of like a part of the norm, right? Whether you think of it as a stack or as an organization, that are just going to vaporize, right? And so I think that one of the things about a super technology, and AI is definitely falls in that category, and agents are an expression of that. What defines a super technology is it plays both sides of the field, right? There's almost like mutual assured destruction at the end of the day. And so, Julia, my take on how you deal with, how you govern chaos, right, is that number one side is ultimately calling the tune, and that's a form of governance right there. So if I reject marketing automation emails at my server level and just say not doing it anymore, the odds are over some period of time that marketers are going to stop doing that, right? Because it's no longer effective. I think that also you're looking at a point at which you ironically get back to humanity, okay? If everybody does what everybody has always done, and that is use AI, use agents to just, scale into the ether, right? Stuff that they don't know works. And so this is where having the causal reference, the causal brain on all this is going to be so indispensable.